The sound hits first, a rhythmic pulse of alarms cutting through the fog-drenched dawn over Manhattan's financial core. Screens flash red inside the high-rise offices of the sterling Capitol Tower. Global markets are crashing, but no one yet knows why. A single encrypted transfer executed at 3:41 a.m. has drained $42 billion from sovereign accounts into an anonymous offshore fund. Inside the tower, billionaire Adrian Vale stands barefoot on marble, watching the chaos like a conductor listening to his orchestra die. He doesn't blink. He whispers, "It's begun." Across the river, an investigative journalist, Elena Cruz, jolts awake to the alert on her cracked phone. She knows that name. She knows the danger. The voiceover cuts in. When one man buys a nation, the price isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in silence. The city's power grid flickers. Somewhere in the darkness, a single message flashes on her screen. The government is sold. By sunrise, every major news outlet reports a temporary systems error. Markets reopen. The world moves on. But inside a secure vault beneath the Treasury Annex, 4 officials argue over the impossible truth. The digital signature behind the transfer traces back to a government server. Someone inside sold the access key. Vale's name hovers in whispers, but no one dares speak it aloud. Across the city, Elena gathers her notes and files, knowing her old stories about corporate capture now have flesh and blood. She lights a cigarette and mutters, "He didn't buy influence. He bought obedience." Vale walks through his penthouse, calm as the world trembles beneath him. His assistant reports media containment complete. He dismisses her with a nod. The skyline burns orange in early light. His reflection merges with it again, a man and a system indistinguishable. "Control is never taken," he murmurs. "It's offered." Elena meets her contact in a deserted subway tunnel. Marcus Reed, the veteran from the blackout, who once guarded Sterling's offshore data center. His voice is hoarse. "You think he's buying politicians," he says. "He already owns the votes before they're cast." Her recorder clicks on. Somewhere above them, the city hums with invisible strings being pulled tighter. Night falls again. In an empty boardroom, Vale meets with shadowed figures, bankers, ministers, advisors. A quiet deal is sealed with silence, not signatures. The voiceover closes the act. Every empire begins with a transaction no one was supposed to see. The screen fades to black. 3 days after the crash, calm returns, or the illusion of it. The stock tickers turn green again, but the streets carry a strange quiet. Governments issue press releases about stabilization, while unseen hands redirect capital through shell corporations. Adrian Vale walks into the Prime Minister's residence like a man entering his own reflection. Cameras flash outside. His smile is faint, his silence louder than applause. The deal is already done. Energy contracts, infrastructure rights, digital ID systems. He has bought not influence, but infrastructure itself. Elena Cruz watches the televised handshake from her apartment, heart pounding, recording every frame. Her voice whispers over the broadcast. When power looks this calm, it's already won. Behind closed doors, Vale presents not proposals but ultimatums. Every nation is an investment, he says softly, and every investment requires returns. Ministers exchange glances. Data scrolls on the table, holograms, defense systems, currency reserves, citizen biometric data, all marked for asset realignment. They hesitate only for a second. Vale's hand taps the table once. The silence that follows is consent. Outside, protesters chant in the rain, their voices muffled by the thick walls. Elena meets her editor at the Ledger. He looks exhausted, terrified. "You're playing with fire," he warns. She slides a flash drive across the desk. Inside it, proof of Vale's offshore holdings tied directly to government servers. The editor hesitates, then whispers, "If this is true, they'll come for you." She smiles bitterly. They already have. As she leaves, the lights flicker. Somewhere, someone has accessed her digital trail. In a private suite above the Capitol, Vale speaks with Eleanor Grace and Victor Hale. They discuss legislation before it's even drafted. Ownership, Vale says, is just control made visible. Hale laughs, puffing his cigar. Grace gazes out at the city lights, murmuring, "Then make sure the lights never go out." Below them, riot sirens wail. The sound barely reaches the glass. As dawn approaches, the protests outside grow. Elena uploads her first report to a secure network. The file encrypts mid-send, pixel by pixel, her reflection flickering across the screen. Voiceover. He didn't steal the country. He bought it, fair and square, and we let him. Across the city, Val's helicopter lifts off from a rooftop, blades slicing through fog. He looks down at the crowd, not as enemies, but as shareholders. Act 2 ends with the sound of his calm breathing over the city's rising chaos. The morning after her report leaks, Elena wakes to find her story erased from every major platform. Comments vanish. The file itself no longer exists. Only her copy remains, buried on an encrypted drive. She looks out at the city, billboards streaming Vale's new economic initiative, the Freedom Dividend. On the streets below, people cheer for tax reliefs and digital credits, not realizing who funds them. Elena whispers, "He's feeding them with their own debt." Her phone vibrates. Unknown number. One text. "Stop digging." She deletes it, exhales, and records a new note. "They've merged money and power into one system. It no longer needs permission or maturity." At Sterling Capital Tower, Vale's boardroom hums with victory. New contracts approved, governments indebted, his name whispered in the halls of power like a brand. He moves between monitors showing rising market lines, the illusion of prosperity. But for the first time, a flicker of unease crosses his face as he studies a satellite feed of protests growing across continents. His voice quiet but sharp. Control doesn't fail overnight, it leaks. Elena tracks Vale's trail offshore. In a cramped co-working basement, she and Marcus decode financial transactions disguised as humanitarian aid. Billions rerouted through shell charities in the Pacific. Marcus sighs, he's laundering ethics. Elena smiles grimly. No, he's selling them. Their screens glow in the darkness. The data they uncover shows Vale's empire not just financing governments, but writing their laws before they pass. In Parliament, Prime Minister Kaur stands before the press, announcing the National Economic Renewal Act. Every clause written by Vale's firm. The crowd applauds. Only a few journalists question the fine print. Elena watches the live feed from her phone, whispering, "He's turned democracy into a business model." Behind her, sirens grow louder. Marcus looks up. "They've found us." Night again! Elena and Marcus flee through back streets, chased by unmarked cars. A drone hum follows above. Rain pours as tires screech. They dive into an alley, hiding under flickering signage. Elena clutches her hard drive. If this goes online, it breaks him. Marcus nods, out of breath. Then let's make it count. She looks up at the skyline, Vale's tower glowing like a crown of fire. Her voiceover closes the act. Every empire writes its own obituary. Ours is just encrypted. Elena and Marcus escape the city before sunrise, taking a freight train north under false names. The carriage rattles through fog, carrying more than fugitives. It carries proof of a nation's sale. She watches the horizon blur, typing her report in fragments on a weathered laptop. Marcus sits opposite, silent, watching for headlights on the tracks behind. "You think anyone will care?" he asks. Elena replies softly, "They will, once they can't afford not to." The train disappears into a tunnel as her screen flickers with lines of encrypted code. The story that could bring Vale's empire down, or erase her forever. In the capital, Vale convenes an emergency meeting. Governments demand answers about leaked offshore accounts. He denies everything with a smile, offering data, proof that the leaks were fabrications. But for the first time, his voice trembles. His assistant Lila studies him quietly. She sees the small cracks beneath the perfect composure. He glances toward the skyline where protests burn brighter. "Control," he murmurs, "is perception." Elena and Marcus arrive at a secluded cabin by a frozen lake, meeting Fiona Clark, the treasury analyst who first traced Vale's signature. She looks exhausted, haunted by what she knows. "They erased me," she says, showing a falsified death certificate with her name. Together, they plan to leak everything through a decentralized network. As they connect their drives, Elena says, "Once it's out, it's everyone's problem." Fiona nods. "Good. Then maybe everyone will start fighting back." Meanwhile, Vale's empire begins to fracture. Partners withdraw funds, governments stall contracts, and whispers spread through the markets like infection. He stands before the window of Sterling Tower, watching chaos reflected in his glass kingdom. Lila enters quietly. "They're turning on you," she says. Vale doesn't respond. His reflection fractures in the glass, two faces staring back. One calm, one collapsing. The upload begins. Inside the frozen cabin, the signal flickers, data transferring across thousands of hidden nodes. Elena's hands tremble as progress bars crawl upward. Val's team detects the breach and launches a counterattack. The connection cuts, restarts, fails again. Marcus reroutes power through a generator. Fiona watches the bars climb to 99%. Outside, snow falls heavy and silent. The voiceover fades in. Truth doesn't win, it survives. The screen cuts to black before we see whether the upload finishes. The file spreads before dawn. Data fragments ripple through dark web mirrors, then explode across public servers. Every secret Vale buried. Contracts, transfers, political payoffs, now belongs to the world. Governments deny it. Citizens repost it faster. By sunrise, markets reel in chaos, and currencies crash on whispers of truth. In her cabin, Elena stares at her screen. Upload complete. Marcus exhales, silent relief etched in his face. Fiona closes her eyes, whispering, "They'll come for us now." Elena replies, "Good. It means they're scared." The world, once silent, begins to shout. In the capital, panic spreads like contagion. Banks freeze accounts linked to Sterling Holdings. Officials resign on live television. Vale's allies scramble to erase their names from his empire. He watches news feeds from his penthouse, his calm finally broken. "This isn't collapse," he murmurs. "It's contagion." Lila stands beside him, phone buzzing with messages. "They're coming for you," she says. He turns toward her, eyes hollow. "No," he replies softly. "They're coming for everyone." Elena and Marcus flee again as helicopters sweep the forest. Fiona stays behind to delay the trace. Her voice over the comm crackles, "Go." "I'll buy you time." The line cuts mid-sentence. Smoke rises from the cabin minutes later. Elena watches from a ridge, tears mixing with snow. She knew this was bigger than her, Marcus says. Elena nods. Now it belongs to everyone. The sound of approaching drones echoes through the mountains. Vale holds an emergency broadcast, his voice calm again, too calm. He promises restoration, calling the leaks foreign interference. Yet the world has changed. Markets no longer obey, citizens no longer trust. Cameras catch a flicker of sweat on his brow, a tremor in his hand. Power, he says, was never about ownership. It was about faith. His signal cuts abruptly mid-sentence, replaced by static. For the first time, silence feels like justice. Weeks later, snow melts into rivers swollen with debris, paper money floating like dead leaves. Elena stands on a bridge overlooking the ruined skyline. Voice soft but resolute. He bought a government. We bought the lie. But truth isn't currency. It's inheritance. She walks away as sirens fade behind her, heading toward the unknown. A final voiceover echoes. Every empire ends. What matters is who writes the last invoice. Months have passed. The world limps forward under new currencies, new flags, new debts. Governments rebuilt from fragments of Vale's empire now issue digital rations instead of promises. Elena travels from camp to camp, documenting survivors of the financial collapse. Food lines stretch for blocks. Markets exist only on black drives and barter. Her narration, steady but cracked. When money died, language followed. People stopped saying worth. They started saying cost. She interviews a mother trading old bonds for bread. Somewhere in the background, Vale's voice still echoes through pirated broadcasts, distorted but alive. Far away in a shattered penthouse overlooking a dead skyline, Adrian Vale lives alone. His empire dissolved, assets frozen, his name erased from databases he once controlled. Only power remains, the memory of control. He still dresses impeccably, still speaks to invisible partners. On his desk, a cracked holographic screen flickers with his old company logo. He whispers, "Markets always recover," then pauses, but not men. He turns off the light. Elena's footage spreads quietly across underground networks. It isn't news, it's memory. People share it through whisper nets, solar terminals, hand-carried drives. Her narration overlays survivors rebuilding from scrap, trading trust instead of currency. They thought truth could be priced, she says. But you can't short a conscience. In one clip, a child smiles while drawing a new flag on a cardboard sheet, one without borders or banks. One evening, Elena receives a message through a secure relay, an untraceable file containing coordinates and a single line. He's alive. She hesitates, then boards an old transport heading south. Through broken cities and abandoned highways, her reflection flickers in the bus window, half journalist, half ghost. Every system, she whispers, leaves survivors. Sometimes that's the problem. She doesn't know if she's chasing justice or obsession. She finds him in the ruins of his childhood town, a forgotten coastal village swallowed by wind and salt. Vale sits on a crumbling pier, coat whipping in the sea air. Elena approaches, camera recording. "Why did you do it?" she asks. He doesn't look at her. "Because everyone had a price," he replies. "I just paid mine first." The sea roars below. She lowers the camera. "And what's left now?" He smiles faintly. "Debt." They sit in silence as waves crash against the pier. Her final narration, when the system ends, what remains isn't wealth or poverty. It's accountability. Weeks after the encounter by the sea, Elena returns to the remnants of the capital. The city is quieter now, its skyline half dark, its citizens half awake. In a reclaimed library lit by candlelight, she edits her final documentary. Her narration overlays footage of collapse, corruption, and courage. "We built systems to measure everything," she says, "except the weight of our silence." Each cut bleeds into another. Faces of the forgotten markets in flames, hands rebuilding from dust. Outside, children chase drones for sport. Inside, Elena adds her last line of text. Produced by no one. Owned by everyone. Meanwhile, across the ocean, fragments of Vale's empire reassemble in new forms. Anonymous investors buy old assets under new names, rebuilding control piece by piece. But the public is different now. Every deal meets resistance. Every lie finds a witness. Vale's name survives only in whispers. A warning, not a legacy. In voiceover, Elena says, "You can bury men, but not their methods, unless you learn." Elena's film releases at midnight across independent networks, projected onto buildings and public walls. Crowds gather in silence as her voice fills the streets. The images are raw, unpolished, truth unbranded. Children sit on rooftops watching history replay against concrete skies. Every generation inherits the system it refuses to question. She narrates. Faces glow in the flickering light. Some cry. Some cry. Some simply watch. High above the city, in a darkened hospital room, Adrian Vale lies dying. His heartbeat syncs with the flicker of distant projections outside. A nurse checks his pulse, unaware of who he is. On the nightstand rests an old coin engraved with the words, "In value we trust." His eyes open faintly, catching a glimmer of his own image reflected on a window, his face fading into the city's light. His whisper barely audible. "It was never the money." The monitor flatlines. At dawn, Elena walks through the same bridge she once crossed in Act 5. The floodwaters have receded. Small markets reopen. Voices return. She stops midway, camera in hand, capturing sunlight reflecting on the rebuilt towers. Her closing narration. Empires don't fall when they lose money. They fall when people stop believing the price is fair. She lowers her camera and smiles faintly. For the first time, the world feels unwritten.